Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our major stories. Acting President Oshibajo defies insurgent security threats, visits Maiduguri in Borno State to flag off distribution of grains meant for internally displaced persons in the northeast. Inspector General of Police orders arrest of those behind eviction order issued to Igbos living in the north. Petroleum Minister Ibe Kachiku refutes speculations of federal government's plans to concession Nigeria's oil refineries to private firms. And former FBI Director James Comey appears before House Intelligence Committee, accuses the Trump administration of lying against him. For more on our top stories and others, please visit our website, channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb. Also, please log on to mchannelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. The Channels TV and Channels 24 apps will give you access to news and updates. You also have access to the Eyewitness feature, with which you can share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and then follow the instructions. And here are some of the pictures you sent in. Let's begin with this one from Ikboba in Edo State, showing cattle invading a classroom. Our eyewitness reporter raises concerns over the safety of the pupils in this school. Next is this image from Oye-Ekiti in Ekiti State, showing people whom our eyewitness reporter says are staff of the Federal University in the state, protesting alleged victimization and non-payment of hazard allowances. He pleads with the relevant authorities to address the situation. Our next image is from Ikeja, the Lagos state capital, showing people sitting dangerously on a moving train. Our eyewitness reporter is worried that people still engage in such acts in spite of reports of deaths by accidents associated with the practice. And finally is this image from Amuwo Dofi, still in Lagos. Our eyewitness reporter who sent in this alleges that this road has been abandoned and wants the contractor to return to work to ease the movement of residents. We thank you for sending these pictures in, and please keep them coming. A team of United Nations officials monitoring the cleanup of the oil-rich Ogoni community believes that the project can only be successful if it is not caught in the web of politics. Resident coordinator of the United Nations in Nigeria, Edward Kalu, is confident that proper political will, patience and attention to details will help speed the 30-year plan. Mr. Kalu was speaking while inspecting the level of work done so far. Our correspondent, Emmanuel Erey, reports.
1 year and a few days after the acting president officially flagged off the cleanup of Ogoni land, representatives of the United Nations Development Programme are here to ascertain the level of implementation of the UNEP report. Kawa, in Kana local government area of River State, one of the communities with polluted sites, is the first port of call. Delegations from the United Nations and the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project meet with the community leaders. The team then proceeds to a contaminated site where a remediation exercise is being conducted. The project coordinator of the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project explains work done so far.
We set up a four-man committee from each of the local governments to identify all water supply treatment facilities across Ogoni land.
The resident coordinator of the United Nations in Nigeria believes the cleanup exercise requires a detailed scientific process.
My appeal is patience to ensure that the required technical needs to ensure that there is an impact at the end of the day is actually done properly.
While advocating that the cleanup exercise of Ogoni land should not be caught up in the web of politics, Governor Wike says that the agitations of the people must be taken seriously.
See with your eyes. You really pity us. And this is what causes the agitation in the minds of our people. The government has taken the oil, My environment is degraded and nothing seems to be done. Those who are farmers cannot farm because the lands are no longer fertile. Those who are fishermen can no longer go to fish because the water is polluted.
The seemingly painstaking cleanup process, according to the operators of the exercise, will also require the cooperation of the community leaders and the locals, as well as a framework that will ensure that it spans through every 5-year period for the next 30 years. Emmanuel Irei, Channels Television News.
Certain persons have been named by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, as beneficiaries of an alleged bribe of $115 million doled out by a former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Diezani Alison Madueke, allegedly to compromise the 2015 general elections. A document tendered today by the Anti-Graft Agency before Justice Rilwan Aikawa of the Federal High Court in Lagos alleged that the resident Assistant Inspector General of Police in Kwara State at the time received 1 million naira in cash.
Mr. Belgore and a former Minister of National Planning, Professor Abubakar Sulaiman, are standing trial before Justice Rilwan Aikawa of the Federal High Court, Lagos, for allegedly collecting 450 million naira from the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Diezani Alison Madueke, and distributing same in cash to beneficiaries in Kwara State for the purpose of influencing the outcome of the 2015 general elections. Mr. Belgore contested the 2015 governorship elections under the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Kwara State. A document tendered and admitted as evidence in court lists beneficiaries of the funds to include the resident Assistant Inspector General of Police in Kwara State at the time. He allegedly received 1 million naira cash. The document also lists the Commissioner of Police in Kwara State at the time and the Deputy Commissioner of Police Operations, who allegedly received 10 million naira and 2 million naira each. The resident electoral commissioner in the state for the 2015 general elections is also alleged to have received 10 million naira cash, while the Independent National Electoral Commission's administrative secretary in the state at the time allegedly received 5 million naira cash. Also listed as beneficiaries of the alleged Diezani bribe were the OC Mopol and his men, who allegedly got 7 million naira, the 2IC Mopol and his men, who allegedly got 10 million naira, and the director of the State Security Service and his men, who allegedly got 2.5 million naira. The military in Kwara State were allegedly bribed with 50 million naira, according to the document, while other security agencies, including the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps and the Federal Road Safety Corps, allegedly got 20 million naira. The EFCC tendered the document through one of its investigators, Usman Zakari, who testified as the second prosecution witness in the case against Mr. Belgore and Professor Sulaiman. The witness told Justice Aikawa that the document was recovered from Mr. Belgore, who volunteered it while being interrogated by the Anti-Graft Agency. Another document exhibited by the EFCC also lists other beneficiaries to include 15 electoral officers who each received 250,000 naira each, 15 supervisors who got 100,000 naira each, and state returning officers who got 1 million naira each. The court has admitted the two documents in evidence. The judge then adjourned till July 7 for a ruling on an application filed by Mr. Belgore seeking the dismissal of the charges against him. Shola Sheyeli, Channels Television News.
Time to move on to Abuja for more news, and here's Maokwe Ogun. Maokwe, good evening.
Hello, and thank you, Ladi. The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, has opened defense on the no-case submission filed by his counsel on the 18-count charge of false declaration of asset. After adopting their written submissions, Saraki's counsel argued that the case was precipitated by petitions which had nothing to do with him, and also the said petitioners have not been named or called. Meanwhile, the prosecution has also filed a written address in reply to the no case. They argue that the defendant had failed to declare properties and that making no declaration submission was an offense. Our correspondent Yemisi Ikpaye reports.
The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, arrives at the Code of Conduct Tribunal to a packed courtroom of supporters, including senators. Defence Counsel Mr. Kanu Agabi, SAN, adopts the written submission of no case to answer, which was filed by the defence on the 26th of May, asserting that the case was precipitated by petitions which had nothing to do with the defendant, and that the petitioners had not even been called to testify. Defence Counsel also highlights that in 10 out of the 18 counts against the defendant, he was charged with making a false declaration by making no declaration, a refusal to declare, and this was inconsistent with a statement in a declaration that is false, as required by law. He further stated that prosecution witnesses had given hearsay evidence and that the prosecution had failed to establish the charges against the defendant. The prosecution's written address in reply was filed on the 2nd of June. Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, SAN, counsel for the prosecution, argues a serious prima facie case has been shown as the defendant had not declared assets acquired in 1999, 2002 and 2003. And the defendant's argument defeats the essence of the Code of Conduct in allowing public officers to use third parties, in effect, as a shield. Mr. Jacobs stated a prosecution was not dependent upon petitions and concluded that a failure to disclose assets was an offence, and it was too early at this stage for the tribunal to make an observation on the facts. Defence counsel replied that the tribunal was not being asked to express an opinion on the evidence, as indeed there was no evidence. The Honourable Chairman of the Tribunal, Danladi Umar, adjourned proceedings to consider the submissions and said counsel would be notified of a date for ruling.
What we did for the defendants is to show that in each of those counts there are essential elements of the offence that were not proved. That's number one. Or on the other hand, that some of the things that were said, and the law says this actually, that they're not such that a reasonable tribunal should convict on them.
We have stated that there are contravention of the code. We pointed out those areas where there are contraventions, areas that he has not declared, area that he not declaring adequately, and the area where he falsely declared.
So, will the tribunal agree with the defence or the prosecution? And will the upcoming ruling determine the defence's next move? Or will it dramatically signal the end of the Senate President's trial altogether? Yemisi Ipaya, Channels Television News.
Well, staying with legal matters, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the EFCC, today opened its case against former President Goodluck Jonathan's chief physician, Dr. Fortune Fibresima, at an Abuja High Court. Dr. Fibresima faces a 6-count charge for allegedly using his position as a chief physician to the former president to award contracts valued at 258 million and 36 million naira to companies where he had interests. A statement from the EFCC says the offences are punishable under Section 19 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act of the year 2000. He was granted administrative bail on April the 25th. And a Federal Capital Territory High Court has ruled that the Nigerian Bar Association presidential candidate Joe Gadzama, who lost at the last NBA presidential election, has the right to approach the court to air his grievances. Justice Adeniyi Ademola, in his ruling, held that the NBA constitution, which stated that an aggrieved candidate must first explore the committee set up by the NBA before approaching the court, is an attempt to impede the plight of his rights as enshrined in Section 36 of the Constitution. Justice Ademola therefore rejected every objection by the defendants that the plaintiff does not have any rights to seek redress in court. The matter has been adjourned to July the 10th to enable parties come forth with a report of settlement, if there'll be any. Now, when the News at 10 returns, Nasarawa State Government and Dangote Group signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a sugarcane plantation in the state. That's some business news. So join us again.